The manufacturing industry is a lifeline for New Yorkers. Since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, New York City has been at the forefront of innovation, technology, and social change. It's the people, the families, and our communities that make this sector diverse, vibrant, and indispensable. Made in NYC was born after 9/11. We realized the best way to help our city rebuild from the rubble was to support New York's most vulnerable but essential industry, manufacturing. By providing companies with the tools to tell their own story of resilience, we have retained jobs, built community, and bolstered the local economy.
Made in New York City supports my business by having regular events and fairs throughout New York City that helps educate the community that we're here, that we are part of an organization that's called New York City because we believe in New York City.
Made in NYC is really important because it lets people know where to shop if you want to support New York businesses.
You guys are actually promoting companies like us. Finally, you're giving companies that manufacture in New York City a platform.
The Made in NYC Learning Lab offers over 40 workshops and creative services annually to members. All workshops and learning opportunities are run by faculty, staff, and students from the Pratt Institute. Programs like creative services, marketing strategy, and DIY photography are offered multiple times a year. Services like these bolster the skills of our local and small businesses. During the COVID-19 pandemic, New York's manufacturers didn't close. They pivoted. They are the ones who stood up to meet the needs of their communities.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining today and welcome to Made in NYC Week's the NYC Makers Toolkit webinar. My name is Joanna Reynolds and I am the manager of programs and partnerships for Made in NYC. I'm going to talk a lot more later on around what Made in NYC is, but very briefly, if you're not familiar, Made in NYC is a nonprofit local branding initiative that supports thousands of New York City's manufacturers and makers with marketing and branding support, as well as building a sense of community. And Made in NYC Week 2020 is our annual celebration of New York City's manufacturing and maker community. This year, due to COVID, all of our events are virtual. And are all the goal is to tell the story and uplift the narrative of New York City's manufacturers. Today, we're going to be providing a lot of information and valuable resources for manufacturers, for all of you, so that you know what's in your toolkit in New York. So if you are a manufacturer and maker in New York City, we want to make sure that you know what resources and organizations are there to support you. And we have some great speakers joining us today that I'm going to introduce in just a moment. I also would like to thank all of Made in NYC's sponsors who have supported Made in NYC Week that we're very thankful for. So first, I'd like to thank the New York City Council who supports Made in NYC all year round. I'd also give a big thank you to Square, the Brooklyn Navy Yard, Uncommon Goods, Goldman Sachs, Cozen O'Connor, the Greenpoint Manufacturing and Design Center, that's GMDC, LISC NYC, TD Bank, Verizon, City Point, Adafruit, Taproom, Outsnapped, and Steady Goods. Thank you so much for supporting Made in NYC. Supporting manufacturing in our local economy is more important now than ever. So now I'm going to bring on our speakers and introduce them, and then we'll get started with walking through all of the information that we have to provide for you tonight. I'll welcome Martin Guerrero from Square to quickly introduce himself. Just tell us who you are, and we'll dive in deeper a little bit later.
Hey, thank you, Joanna, and hi, everyone. Yeah, happy to be a sponsor here and work with you guys on this really great event. My name is Martin Guerrero. I work for Square. I work for our small business and community advocacy team, partnering with groups such as Made in NYC, really helping small business and manufacturing companies with all of their needs.
Great, thanks. Next up, I'd like to quickly introduce Stephanie Dolan from SBIDC.
Hi, really excited to be a part of Made in NYC 2020. Again, I'm Stephanie Dolan. I'm from the Southwest Brooklyn Industrial Development Corporation. I'll give you more information about what that is in a bit, but really happy to be here.
Thanks. And last but not least, Alex Stepik from Start Small, Think Big.
Hi, I direct the legal programs for Start Small, Think Big, and we're a 501c3 nonprofit that provides free legal, financial management, and marketing and sales support to low to moderate income or underserved, under-resourced entrepreneurs, founded and continuing to have a strong presence throughout all 5 boroughs of New York City and increasingly throughout the state of New York.
Wonderful, thank you. So to kick it off, I'm going to pass it on to Martin, who's going to walk you through a bit more around what Square can offer and what resources they have in relation to e-commerce for our makers and manufacturers. So Martin, I'll pass it to you.
Awesome, thank you. Here, Martin again here. Yeah, I wanted to talk to you guys today about Square Online and what that offers to you. Obviously, we're here in the virtual world now. Pre-pandemic, having an online presence was really something that was like a nice to have, and something that a lot of businesses thought, well, down the line I'll have that. But really, it's been brought to the forefront that it's something that's really business critical now. Being able to have an online presence and being able to ship your goods and services, throughout the country and throughout the world, and you can do that with Square Online. The difference here, although Square is known for its card readers and in-person digital cash registers. We've been laying the groundwork now for a few years to really incorporate the online presence into that. So that's a really powerful combination of having those in-person payments and your online payments all in one central location. Really helps you as a business know where you stand with all of your sales and all of your funds coming in. So Square is happy to offer Square Online now a fully free e-commerce solution, feature packed with almost all of the different features that you would pay other e-commerce solutions for. Again, we offer this as a fully free option for you, available to anyone with a Square account. And this syncs all of your item library, your inventory, your sales, and all into one dashboard where you can see a real holistic view of all of your sales in one place. So that's what Square Online is, and happy to discuss more if need be.
Thanks, Martin. That's great. Before we move on, just a quick question. So, if a New York City maker or manufacturer wants to get engaged with Square around their e-commerce, what's the right next step? How do they get in that pipeline? How do they get themselves started? Really quickly.
Yeah, to get started, you would just, if you don't already have a Square account, you would sign up at square.com. Sign up, and you have an online store option in there. It's a blue button right in the dashboard, and will walk you through all the steps needed to get up and running, whether that's setting up shipping, creating your store, syncing over all of your inventory. We kind of walk you through all that whole process to do so. But yeah, and then if you have more questions and need assistance, you can go to sellercommunity.com. That's a community of like-minded businesses, sellers that use Square and ask and answer each other's questions.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I guess we can dive into more questions later. So Martin, stay with us. And for everyone watching, if you write into the comments and you have more questions for all of our speakers, we'll have a time dedicated to answering all of those questions a little bit more towards the end. So I'm gonna now bring in Stephanie Dolan to talk a bit about what SBIDC does and what industrial service providers can provide New York City's manufacturers.
Hey everybody, Stephanie Dolan here again. I'm again from the Southwest Brooklyn Industrial Development Corporation, SBIDC for short. We are a 42-year-old nonprofit working on Brooklyn's working waterfront to support industrial and manufacturing businesses in Red Hook, Gowanus, and Sunset Park. I am one of several, or SBADC is one of several industrial business service providers. We are contracted by the city to manage industrial business zones and provide support for manufacturing and industrial businesses. And that's anything from a very small maker who's just getting started to, large scale industrial businesses like Sims Recycling or even larger e-commerce businesses. We provide a whole suite of services. Some of the, what we call IBSPs, provide some different services, but I can let you know what we provide. And then, you can contact your own industrial business service provider. They're geographically located. So if you live in Greenpoint, for example, you would work with Evergreen, or if you live in Queens, you would work with, I think it's the Maspeth Industrial Development Corporation. So there are several in the city. You can get in touch with any of the ones that, any of your IBSPs through contacting SBS, the New York City Department of Small Business Services. My organization, like I said, we're 42 years old. We provide various business support services because we believe that industrial and manufacturing businesses are crucial to New York City's economy. We want to preserve the legacy of industrial and manufacturing. We want to educate people about what those businesses are. Often people hear manufacturing or industrial and they think dark factories and, dangerous working conditions. And we know that that is not, what manufacturing and industrial businesses are now. One of the big reasons why we do support these businesses is because they provide career pathways for local residents and for people in the community. Oftentimes retail positions don't have real solid career pathways, and the salaries might not be that great. They might not teach transferable skills. So we really want to work with industrial businesses to help them fill their workforce needs, help assess whatever they need in terms of training workforce or whatever they need in terms of their own business services. So I know business services is kind of a vague term, and I'll give you a little bit more information about what we do. We have I said, a suite of services in that area. So we can help people with just regular diagnostic to start thinking about what your business is like, where you want it to go, if you want it to grow, if you need new employees, how to set up logistics your factory, especially if you want to grow your factory. And just general business consulting and growth consulting. We also help people with navigating government issues. We know that that is a huge hurdle for many businesses to get over, whether it's regulations, complying with regulations, or getting licenses, or just trying to deal with the fact that the water's turned off on your street that day. And why did that happen? And why didn't I get told this? So there's a lot of those hurdles that you have to jump when you are a manufacturer. And we help with a variety of those, either branches of the government or municipal utility companies. We also work with various financial institutions to help people access capital for their business. And we work with some mainstream financial institutions and also with alternative financial institutions, maybe if you're young or maybe you don't have a solid credit history. So we are happy to connect folks with kind of the right lender or the right organization to help you either access working capital or capital to buy equipment, or even buying or purchasing a space. That's another area that we work in is real estate. We have a great network of real estate partners who help small businesses find places that they can produce their produce their goods and just find good space to work. We know it's really hard to find those spaces in New York City, so we're happy to help with that piece. We help businesses access tax incentives and tax credits. If you're an industrial or a manufacturing business, there are a lot of incentive programs and tax credit programs that the city and the state offers, and even the federal government offers that a lot of people just don't know about. So we're happy to help folks access that type of resource. And then finally, we work in the workforce development world as well. We at the Brooklyn Army Terminal have a Workforce One Center, which is the city's workforce development arm. And we're one of the only nonprofits in the city that manages one of those centers. And so the idea is you would place job orders with the Workforce Center, and we would try to place eligible candidates with you. We also provide various sources within the Workforce One Center, helping you figure out what HR regulations are, providing training for your employees, training for you, so you have a better understanding about what the right HR policies are. And then we provide lots of different training resources throughout the year. We have a program called Plan for Growth, where we help small manufacturers kind of develop like a soup to nuts growth plan, assessing everything from, operations, finances, marketing, and HR. So, we really are trying to help grow this industry and help preserve this industry as best that we can. The final area that we work in is advocacy. Like I said, we want to preserve the industry, and we want to protect the industry. And we know that in New York City, something that is very important is, real estate, and there's a lot of development around the industrial business zones that are threatening the health and safety and viability of a lot of manufacturing companies in those areas. And so we are trying to protect these industrial business zones to make sure that manufacturing businesses can continue to thrive there, and then provide the support to help you do so. So if you have any questions about what we do or any of our programming, you can contact me. I don't know if Joanna's going to share our information. If you are in Southwest Brooklyn, I'm happy to help you. If you're in any other areas of the city, you can contact, like I said, the Department of Small Business Services, and they can connect you with your local industrial business service provider. And I think that's about it.
Great. Thanks so much, Stephanie. Appreciate that overview. And it's a lot. You guys do a lot, which is really amazing. There's so many pieces of the work that you do. All right. So yeah, we'll wait till a little bit later to see if there's any questions for you. And next we'll bring in Alex.
Thank you, Joanna. It's an honor to work with folks doing this work across the board and with this community. At Start Small, Think Big, we work with any and all types of small businesses, but it is makers and industrial groups that have, in many cases, the best opportunity to scale, especially when they take advantage of the resources that are uniquely available in New York City. And I'll note that we work regularly with SBIDCs, that we work with Square. In fact, I've worked with their legal team just a couple of weeks ago out of their San Francisco office. It's a great community, and one that I think really works best when we all work together to support the businesses out there. So on that note, I'll give an intro to the organization that I work for, Start Small, Think Big. And I'll give Joanna one moment before I launch in.
Give me 1 second. All right. Sorry, I'm here. Does that look all right for you guys? Does that work, Alex? We're good?
Sure. Yeah. So we can jump to the first slide after this. So Start Small, Think Big is a nonprofit. We were founded in the Bronx. We're currently headquartered in Harlem. We work nationally at this point, but we remain extremely focused on New York City. And we believe that entrepreneurs require certain auxiliary services to thrive. And that's what we're here to do, is to help anyone who is under-resourced. That is, they can't access the things that we offer without that free help right now. And we help them to build wealth for themselves, their families, and their communities. And the way we do that is by activating a network of top-tier professional volunteers to deliver pro bono legal, financial, and marketing services so that we can really nurture each business. Next slide, please. So this slide talks about the range of businesses that we support. This is really the average for us, which is to say that some businesses come to us when they are making very little revenue, right? The average revenue is 40,000, but that includes folks that are making substantially more, up to $1 million in revenue when they come for support. And the fact of the matter is that when you're talking about under-resourced communities, that tends to intersect with other areas that are traditionally underserved or systemically oppressed. But the door is open to everyone who's a small business who meets our eligibility criteria. Next slide, please. So what is our model? And specifically, I used to work in private practice as an attorney. And one of the first three things that a startup does when they go out and they get that Series A or that angel investment of a certain size that you hear about is go out and hire three groups of people. You go and hire a lawyer or a law firm to make sure that you are protecting your company, your IP, your assets, that you're setting yourself up for growth. You generally need to hire somebody to make sure you don't run out of that capital, paying lawyers and other people and new employees or buying new materials before you run out of cash. So you need financial management and planning. And then you also make sure that you bring in marketing experts. And these are usually people that you don't hire in-house right away because you're busy focusing on what you do, producing a high quality product or service. But you need somebody to come in and provide that support until you're able to grow to where you bring that in-house. And that's what we basically do. We offer legal, marketing, and financial guidance and assistance. We focus on the transactional matters. We serve the business, not the individual. And while we don't offer financing and we don't do taxes, but the financial model is to do everything in between because that's what we find intersects with legal. It's not helpful to have great contracts if those contracts aren't tied to solid financial projections. And even those things aren't going to help if you can't do the marketing and sales work to drive revenue subsequently. Next slide, please. So we vet our entrepreneurs and we work with people across the spectrum, and we make sure that we have an approach that's inclusive and supportive. Fundamentally, what that means is that you just need to have over $500 in sales, but less than $1 million in the prior year. And that's because we're working with businesses that at this point can't afford it. That said, there are other folks out there. You should absolutely avail yourself of every opportunity to keep costs low and to make sure that you're talking to lawyers and financial planners and marketing and sales experts along the way. I myself have run startups, started them from nothing. And I can tell you that no matter what you have in-house in your founders team, no matter how great your product is, if you're not seeking that help, you're going to hit a wall at some point. And so try to go out and get it before it happens, before you hit that wall, rather than at the moment where you're freaked out and you have 1 day to sign a contract. I'm less helpful. My team is less helpful. Our pool of thousands of lawyers at some of the biggest law firms and corporations in the world, most of whom sit in New York City, are not as helpful if you're doing it after you found you're in trouble or after you realize it. You need to project that need in advance. Next slide, please. So this is a tough time for small businesses. So we've put together a lot of extra resources and really pushed forward to try to make sure that we're here to support you in your business. Next slide, please. So what does that mean in a specific sense? What would you come to us for? So the legal program that I run provides one-to-one support and expertise to protect and grow your business. And that's not just one lawyer. That's often as many as 20 lawyers spread between 3 or 4 law firms, the same way you would if you were a much larger business, because you go to certain groups for certain levels of expertise. Certain law firms may have 1,000 lawyers in New York, but maybe 800 of them do one thing exceptionally well, and they don't have a group that does something else. So that's what we do, is we work to identify the legal issues facing your business, the risks, the liabilities that you're facing, but also the opportunities where really good legal work can help to elevate your business, drive revenue, find new customers, and solidify and protect what you're building. So we work through all of that, whether it's business contracts, transactional assistance related to intellectual property. We have an entire program for what we call doing business online that complements working with groups like Square that Martine mentioned, where we look through your website after you've already set it up with a team like Square's to actually function. And we ask the question, what sort of terms and contracts do you now need built into that website? What privacy notices do you need if you suddenly are about to sell a lot of product in Europe or in California? Understanding all of those issues is something that big businesses need tons of support for, but small businesses do too, because as you grow, as you pivot online, so too does your potential liability exposure along with that opportunity. And so we try to tie those two things together. Next slide, please. And I'll just quickly run through this. We also tie that directly with financial services. We found that if I'm just having my team set you up with legal meetings and we're not tying that to your books, that's difficult. So our team focuses, if you need it, on making sure that you understand how to have clean books, put together basic projections, even valuations, so that you can understand how you should raise capital before you come to me and ask for a contract on how to put that capital raise together. But we try to support people from that level where you're starting out all the way through the point where you might be selling a piece of the company, taking on equity investment, or a major capital raise. And the financial program is here to support you on that directly. Next slide, please. We also have a marketing and sales program, our market access program, that's designed to help fill those gaps. You know, if you're coming to us, you've already market tested initially, maybe you already have extensive market testing, but there's always room for growth, right? If you're manufacturing, you can always sell more, you can always produce more. And that's what that program is really there to work on. Increasingly, it's about establishing your brand identity, figuring out how to market digitally, and then connecting entrepreneurs with actual sales opportunities wherever possible. And that's even one where our volunteer network of thousands of relatively affluent individuals who are lawyers and financial professionals and the like, they not only want to volunteer with you, they want to buy from you directly because they want to support small local business, especially in New York City. Next slide, please. What's been happening in COVID? If you're out there doing this work, you already know it's not good, right? COVID has disproportionately affected small businesses, and in particular, small businesses that are owned by people of color, that are from underserved communities. And New York has a great reputation for supporting people across these areas, but at the same time, there are neighborhoods that are particularly hit hard right now, communities that are particularly hit hard. So we've tried to step up our support to be more supportive, knowing that it's even harder than it was before, which was already hard. So next slide, please. So one of the things we did was launch an emergency relief fund for our clients. If you sign on with us, it's not automatic, but it's an opportunity. While working with us, we've tried to raise additional capital to directly offer grants, in addition to providing the rapid response program that we built out. We started in March and we launched by April 10th. And this program was able to connect people directly with high quality lawyers to help them fill out PPP applications, EIDL applications. And now we're working on loan forgiveness, looking at contracts to see if you can either find a way to renegotiate the contract if you're not able to honor the obligations right now because of COVID, or perhaps to hold other people to understand what your rights and responsibilities are. The same thing we'll be launching soon, support with commercial lease renegotiation, to try to help people who want to stay but are maybe not able to make full rent on their commercial leases right now, to try to find common ground with their landlords so that everybody can continue to keep all of their businesses moving forward together. That's available on our website. It's an easy 2-minute request. And that's something that we do in parallel to our full client services, where we try to turn around a meeting for you with a lawyer or a financial professional, generally within 2 weeks and often within 10 days, depending on the complexity of the specific requests that you need help with. Next slide, please. So a little more about the rapid response program. This is essentially our entire service model shrunk down. So you get an opportunity for 60 to 90 minutes with a lawyer, a financial or marketing professional, depending on your specific need. It takes less than 2 minutes to fill in the request, and you're able to get in there and actually see what you can do in a way where you have a definitive answer to move forward. And then if you need more support, we're available to have you onboarded as a full client, where we provide 12 months of holistic support in all 3 of those areas, in complement to, rather than competition with, folks like the other 2 presenters on here and their organizations. We want you to get all the resources possible. So if that means I can give you some lawyers and you don't need the other programs, wonderful. If it means that you need all 3 of these pieces, we're here for that too. Next slide, please. So this is a set of some of the businesses that we support in New York City. The most important thing is that you should apply for support. We are here for every small business that we can help in New York. We have yet to hit capacity. As I mentioned, we have the support of about 60 of the 100 largest law firms. We work with many of the large banks. Several of the folks that Joanna mentioned at the beginning work with us. They directly contribute volunteers and money to this project as well. there is an opportunity for you to be on this list. So I encourage you to visit us at startsmallthinkbig.org and submit an application, whether it's for a quick individual meeting because you have a question or a contract clause that you just need to understand to move forward, or to submit a full application that also takes less than 15 minutes and yields results that are really tremendous holistically over 12 months. And of course, I'm available on the rest of this webinar to answer any questions about that and to encourage you to seek that help, because I can tell you from experience, having run small businesses myself, as well as having fought big fights as a litigator, you can't do it alone. It's always a team effort, and we're here to be part of that team for you.
That was awesome. Thank you so much. There's a lot, you guys do a lot of different things and help businesses in a lot of different ways. That last slide, this is, part of why, we're all working together is a number of Made in NYC members were on that last slide. So you're already helping a lot of our manufacturers and makers in New York City with the things that they need. And we want to get more of our businesses engaged who could benefit from your services. So Alex, thanks. That was wonderful. Stay on in case there are questions at the end. And now I'm going to talk a little bit more about Made in NYC and what Made in NYC has to offer. Many of you who are watching are already Made in NYC members. Some of you are new members, and many of you are not as familiar with Made in NYC. So I'm going to now share my screen again and show you a bit more about what we do. So just give me one moment. And there we go. One second. There we go. All right. Thanks, everyone. So a bit about Made in NYC. So Made in NYC, as I mentioned earlier, is a nonprofit initiative, local branding initiative that supports thousands of New York City's manufacturers and makers. We now have over 1,400 and growing Made in NYC members. And we, in every borough, in every sector that you could imagine. Made in NYC is an initiative of the Pratt Center for Community Development, which is a part of Pratt Institute and is generously supported by the New York City Council. And as I mentioned earlier, Made in NYC Week is supported by many generous sponsors who support our work. And Made in NYC was started in the aftermath of 9/11. And, as a way for New Yorkers to be encouraged to shop more locally, as well as to get companies to connect with each other so that they could help sustain local supply chains. And similar to what we're going through right now, it was a time when uplifting New York City and supporting its small businesses and communities was critically and essentially important. So as I mentioned, Made in NYC has actually over 1,300, so more than what this slide is saying, over 1,400 members and counting. The three biggest sectors that we work with are fashion, food and beverage, and home and interiors. And as I mentioned, we work with businesses in all 5 boroughs. So if you are a business that is making a product and in one of the 5 boroughs, you are most likely eligible for a free Made in NYC membership. And our membership, as well as all of the resources that we provide, are free to our members. So Made in NYC's membership is very much in line with the dynamic and diverse community that is New York City. Since 2019, 75% of our new members identify as POC owned, 25% of our members identify as Black owned, and a very large number of our businesses are also women-owned businesses. And most of our BIPOC-owned businesses are also women-owned businesses who we work with. The first major piece of work that we do is around marketing. So when a business becomes a Made in NYC member, they are able to use the Made in NYC logo as a way to tell the story to their customers that their product was made here. So many of our members use the Made in NYC logo on their website, on their packaging, on their products, and any other ways that it helps them identify themselves as a locally made business. In addition to that, new members all get a profile on our website. And our website is an online directory that is open to the public where you can search for locally made businesses and locally made goods. And our website really serves as a tool for our companies to connect with new customers and raise awareness around their brand and reach more people. In addition to our website and our logo, we run 2 major campaigns every year. We have our annual holiday campaign, as well as what we're in right now, which is part campaign, part events, Made in NYC Week. And that is an annual event series that we run. This year is our 3rd annual Made in NYC Week. And it is a way that we once a year really put a big push behind our members to uplift their stories and talk about local manufacturers and makers. So a big chunk of what we do is the Made in NYC Learning Lab. And the Made in NYC Learning Lab is the vehicle through which we deliver free marketing and branding workshops and creative services to New York City's manufacturers and makers. I mentioned earlier that Made in NYC is an initiative of the Pratt Center for Community Development, and the Pratt Center for Community Development is a part of Pratt Institute. So our relationship with Pratt Institute enables us to tap into the expertise of the Pratt community. And so all of Made in NYC Learning Lab's classes and opportunities are taught and led by Pratt faculty and staff and supported by Pratt students. And the Pratt community are both experts in teaching as well as experts in their field as like active practitioners outside of the academic space. There are 3 buckets of programming that we do. So the first is creative services, which involves both product photography and marketing video production. Secondly, we set businesses up so that they can become a bit more self-sufficient and sustainable. And so we have a DIY photography workshop series. And then lastly, our largest bucket of programming is around marketing strategy. So we run a number of different workshops around all kinds of marketing strategies. So we have a digital marketing strategy workshop series. We have a very intense cohort model workshop series around marketing collaborations that we run. We also have a workshop around new product innovation. We even run a business mindfulness meditation incubator and many more workshops. But this is really the bulk of how we provide value to our businesses through skill building and creative service delivery. And start to wrap it up talking a bit about community. So something that we've realized during COVID is that maintaining a sense of community and connecting with each other is both more important than ever and more challenging than ever. So, when COVID-19 hit, we pivoted all of our Made in NYC Learning Lab workshops to an online format. We pivoted all of our events and other ways that we connect with our businesses to an online format. And we started running webinars and town halls that were delivering critical information and resources to Made in NYC businesses around, what they needed at that time in the middle of crisis in here in New York. In addition, before COVID, we used to run quarterly networking events. It's called our Made Here, Meet Here networking event series. And we pivoted to do an online weekly office hours on Zoom, where businesses were able to set up a time for a one-on-one consultation with Made in NYC, as well as stay on for networking hour where they could connect with each other and remember that as entrepreneurs and small businesses and manufacturers in New York City, that they were not alone. So before I break, that's a nice overview of what Made in NYC is all about. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the Made in NYC Learning Lab, and then we'll see if there are any questions. Please drop them in the comments, and we'll round up by just answering some more questions. So quickly, I am going to walk you through a little bit what the Made in NYC Learning Lab is all about. So I just brought up the Made in NYC Learning Lab page on our website. This is where you sign up for all of our workshops. Our 2020-2021 opportunities and programs are going live tonight. So if you are a New York City manufacturer, maker, and a Made in NYC member, we are opening up registration for this year. So there's a lot coming up in the fall as well as the spring, and some really critically important workshops. We additionally this year have a relationship with the Garment District Alliance and are offering workshop programming that is just for fashion manufacturers, whereas all of our other programming is open to all sectors. All right. And so that website that I just showed is madeinnyc.org/learning lab. And I highly recommend you take a peek through and see what there is to offer. See if there's any questions, and maybe we'll bring all the speakers back on and sort of round out the conversation around what we know manufacturers need right now. Stephanie, I know that, your organization, you've really been at the heart of a lot of the support that's been happening for businesses during COVID-19. What are the things that you have seen that that businesses need the most right now?
Well, I think initially it was certainly clarity on the flow of information that we were getting for businesses in terms of what their resources were and how they could apply for those things. And so we did a lot of work around PPP and EIDL and making sure that people were applying for those. Like Alex, we're also working with folks now on the forgiveness for that. I think people have a lot of questions about the PPP forgiveness and if their EIDL will be forgiven. And what other financial resources there might be. One piece I think that we really want to work on, and we're trying to develop some resources around, is how now to stay afloat and survive and be sustainable in this post-COVID era. We realize that businesses are not probably operating at the same volume that they once were. And there are some major challenges with that. And we want to try to help businesses kind of forecast and understand their cash flow a little bit better in order to survive and sustain. So certainly that's one piece of it. Another piece that we're seeing a lot of are people who are having issues with their rent, and a lot of complaints from people who own properties about their property taxes being very high. Now, with rent, we're working with legal services to help people negotiate their contract. Their leases and lease renewals. And but for property tax, there's really not much we can do. There is a from Department of Finance, there's a form that you can complete to have them reassess what your property tax is. But that is something that we would start to advocate for if enough businesses come to us and say, this is a real problem. In line with that category of advocacy, if any businesses are seeing issues that they would like to have some folks back them up and some other businesses back them up on, we're more than happy to help with those situations. I mean, anything from, like I mentioned before, navigating government to accessing finances to any kind of city policies that are happening right now. We really want to have an understanding of what businesses need at this point. So I guess to wrap it up, I mean, for us, it's, finances and staying afloat and figuring out what businesses are going to look like now post-COVID, and then helping with kind of rent renewals, lease negotiations, and potentially relocating. So those are some of the biggest issues we're dealing with right now, for sure.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I know that rent has been a real challenge for a lot of the companies that we work with because most of them don't own their own buildings. And was wondering, Alex, from the legal services perspective that Start Small, Think Big offers, is that something that you've been running into? And is that something that companies have been coming to you all for help on?
Absolutely. It's something that we're seeing both in New York City. I did a panel similarly just on that issue in DC last week, and have similar requests coming in from California, all over the country. Everyone's in a similar place, but the higher your rent, the more pressing the issue is, and the longer you've been forcibly shut down, the harder it is to get there. So by that metric, New York City is probably the hardest hit right now. What we found is that putting people in the room for meetings with lawyers is less about reading the lease and digging in some way because we're not going to litigation on this. What we're finding is that doing reasonable market assessments and talking about negotiating tactics, primarily starting with finding out what the relationship is with your landlord, understanding what motivates them, and the big split being between institutional landlords and smaller landlords, has been pretty successful. And our rapid response program has seen a common agreement is something like a 12 to 16 month reduction in rent by 20 to 30%, along with some payment plan for unpaid rent during the worst period when no money was coming in. It's relatively common because the idea there is that neither party wants to break the lease, and that they want to make right. But if the answer is just that one side says, I can't pay, or the other side says you have to pay and you have to pay it all before I move to an eviction proceeding, that's not a really feasible path forward. We know a lot of folks that took everything they got in PUA or PPP funds and sank it into rent, but it wasn't driving revenue. And so at this point, landlords need to be reasonable and take that into account, or else it's going to be hard for everyone. But there is a path forward, and everyone should remember a commercial lease is still just a contract, and every contract is open to renegotiation if both parties are willing to be reasonable. And that's what you're hoping for. And I've seen in New York, perhaps a better path forward for a lot of people than in other markets that we offer services in, because a lot of landlords are New York based. There are fewer mega institutional landlords here that have properties that are just parts of portfolios of investments. They exist, but even there you can come up with a financial argument for them to try to move forward, especially if you point out you're pivoting to digital. If you can show revenue growth from your bottom and show that you're building back up, people are a lot more willing to work with you to say, I think you're going to get back. So showing anything is helpful to really say we're ultimately just people all trying to make it through. And this agreement is going to fail for both sides if there aren't accommodations made across the board. So that's what we've been pushing for. We're close to launching a major nationwide push. Folks can go on our website for the rapid response program and request a meeting for support specifically with a commercial lease, to get it looked at by real estate professionals to see if they have leverage, and even where they don't, to ultimately talk with folks about active tactics they can use to go into a meeting and try to renegotiate. Certainly can't promise results, but we've seen a decent return. A lot of people have gotten the little bit of breathing room they needed to find other ways to move forward.
And if there's a business watching this right now that goes, wow, I'm having issues like right now. I've never heard of Start Small, Think Big. I would love to get connected with them. What's their best pathway forward to sort of get into your pipeline and get some support?
Sure. The easiest thing is to go to our website, www.startsmallthinkbig.org, and go to the Apply Now, where they have a button that will ask them a couple of questions, and you can decide if you want the rapid response or if you want our full services. In both cases, we work collaboratively with all of our other partners to find that support. The rapid response is designed to try to turn those meetings around, and we're scheduling a recurring clinic with a large number of firms and legal services in NYC that we're launching this month, to try to have regular appointments available for businesses to get in and at least 60-minute consultation, and then wherever possible to try to track them into more robust support if that's necessary, short of litigation. Our goal is always to avoid litigation because that's expensive and unhelpful most of the time for businesses. The best thing possible is to work with the people that you've been working with to find a mutually beneficial solution. So we're here for that. Check us out on our website. And it's a really it's as quick a turnaround as lawyers may be able to do. It's hardly a guarantee, and we usually work a lot more slowly, but we've been really working with volunteers in our team during COVID to say sometimes people need an answer faster. So we're doing everything we can there.
Great, thank you. That's really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Martine, before we wrap up, what if a company has no e-commerce presence right now and really wants to engage and is interested in getting involved in Square, but maybe needs a training or a workshop, or what support is there for them to sort of get started?
Yeah, great question. We do have a YouTube channel full of webinars that I've been doing with several organizations such as yourself on how to get online with Square, walking you through the entire process. We're always doing some. We're doing some in New York here in the coming months as well. So yeah, keep an eye on those. Right at sellercommunity.com is where we would announce any upcoming webinars.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Does anyone have any other messages for our manufacturers and makers who are struggling right now? Some are getting back on their feet, some have pivoted, and it's been a tough couple months, and I know we've all been sort of at the heart of it, supporting our businesses. So yeah, any closing thoughts before we wrap? And it's okay if you don't.
I just wanted to reach out and let people know how to get in touch with us. You can hit the contact us link on our website, which is sbidc.org. And our business services managers will get back to you right away. And I would say that, whatever kind of issue any businesses is going through right now, it's worth it to reach out to SBIDC or whoever your industrial business service provider or Alex's organization to really just see what kind of help they can get. Even if we're not the right person, we're a pretty small network of providers, so we could probably make the right connection for these organizations. You're not in it alone, I guess, is the number one thing. There's resources out there for you.
Great.
Yeah, I would echo what Stephanie said. There's a lot of resources out there, and you just have to ask. And like she said, even if you go to one and it's not the right one, they're going to direct it to someone who can. So yeah, definitely take advantage of those resources that are available.
Yeah, and I just Made in NYC was sort of this umbrella organization that supports all manufacturers in all boroughs. And we can be a connector for businesses that are like, who's that? Start small, think what was that SBI? Made in NYC for everyone can be a hub. If you ever want to be connected to folks like the people we have here tonight, come to Made in NYC and we'll figure out how to connect you to our network all over the city of people who are servicing and providing and here, and we're here for you, essentially. Well, I want to thank you all for participating. We'll make sure to share all of your websites and make sure everyone knows where to get in touch with you. We'll add them in the comments. This webinar will live on YouTube and Facebook. So if you came in late, you can go back and watch the whole thing and watch it later and dip in and dip out. This particular webinar and all of the events that we're having this week are part of Made in NYC 2020, our annual celebration of New York City's manufacturing community. And this is day 4 of Made in NYC week. So we kicked off on Friday, October 2nd, which was National Manufacturing Day. This past weekend, we had a weekend of making. So we had virtual demos and tastings featuring our members that we ran all weekend. And all of that content, if you missed that this weekend, lives on our YouTube channel. You can go back and watch it later. And then this week, we have a slew of panels. We have a couple of more webinars that are happening. We have virtual factory tours up on our website, so you can explore New York City's manufacturing spaces from the safety of your own home. And we also have a partnership with Uncommon Goods where we have an exclusive online marketplace that will be live on Uncommon Goods website for the entire month of October. You can go and, if you're a consumer, go shop local Made in NYC products to support New York City's makers and manufacturers. And I'd like to wrap up. So you can find all of those different events that I talked about for Made in NYC Week, www.madeinnycweek.com. And one more shout out to all of our sponsors. Thank you so much for your support. New York City Council, Square, who's on this webinar right now. We appreciate your support. The Brooklyn Navy Yard, Goldman Sachs, Kirsten O'Connor, GMDC, LISC, TD Bank, Verizon, City Point, and Adafruit. Thank you so much for your support, and have a great night, everyone. Thank you.